I was counting our Christmas savings the night before the storm hit, the same way I've done for 32 years. My wife Carol was already asleep. At 1:17 a.m., my phone buzzed on the kitchen table. A text from an unknown number, 5 words. "You trusted the wrong man." I stared at it, cold settling deep in my gut. Then another message came. "Ask your son-in-law." I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with the envelope of savings in front of me, my thumb tracing the flap, the way you do when something inside doesn't feel right anymore. At 68, your instincts sharpen, not dull. You've lived long enough to know when a voice, even one made of pixels and light, is telling you the truth. When the sun finally crept over the snowbanks outside, I walked into the living room and found Carol standing by the tree. She looked tired, as she always does near Christmas. She puts her whole heart into making it perfect for the family. "You're up early," she said. I didn't answer. I was watching her hands. They trembled when she adjusted an ornament, the one our daughter Emily made in 2nd grade. I swallowed hard. "Did you talk to Derek lately?" I asked. "Derek, my son-in-law. Too smooth, too charming. A man who never blinked twice when someone else picked up the bill." She turned to me. "Why?" That was all she said. But I knew she heard it in my voice, the worry, the suspicion, the thing I was trying not to say out loud yet. "I just need to ask him something," I said, trying to keep my tone level. "About the holidays, about money." Her face tightened. She walked toward me slowly, cautious, like approaching a wounded animal. "David, what's going on?" I didn't want to tell her yet. Not until I checked the envelope, not until I confirmed the thing I already feared, so I lied. Not a big lie, not one that would hurt her. "Just a temporary bandage. Probably nothing," I said. "I'll talk to him later." She didn't believe me. She knows me too well, but she didn't push. When she went upstairs, I finally opened the envelope. My heart dropped. It wasn't empty, but it was wrong. Too light, too thin, too obviously touched by someone who didn't care what it meant to us. Not just money. 3 decades of tradition. 3 decades of choosing Christmas magic over convenience, of saving slowly, intentionally together. My throat tightened. "He wouldn't," I whispered. But I knew he would. Derek wasn't cruel. He was careless. And sometimes that's worse. By noon, the house was full of the small noises of a normal day. Carol folding laundry, the neighbor's snowblower, the ticking of the old wall clock that's been dying for years. I stared at that envelope for hours, before I finally grabbed my coat, grabbed a pen, and grabbed a scrap of paper. I didn't know exactly what I was going to write, only that it needed to hurt just enough to make him face what he'd done. The truth has weight, and I wanted him to feel every ounce of it. I walked outside, the cold hitting me like a slap, and stood beside Derek's shiny black SUV. He always parked too close to our yard, like the line between our lives and his didn't exist. I pressed the paper against the cold glass of his windshield and wrote the words slowly, carefully, making sure every letter was clear. Then I slid the note under his wiper. As I stepped back, I whispered something I haven't said in years. "You won't lie your way out of this." I went inside and waited. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. And when Derek finally pulled into the driveway, an hour later, I saw the moment he spotted the note, the way his entire body froze. He lifted it with trembling fingers, read the single sentence I'd written, and looked up at the house with eyes full of sudden fear. "We need to talk about the money." Derek didn't come into the house right away. He stood in the driveway much longer than a normal man would after reading a simple note. He read it once, then again, then lowered it slowly like something inside him had just sunk to the bottom. I watched through the curtain, not hiding, not pretending. At my age, you stop worrying about whether someone sees you watching. You learn that silence, when used right, is sometimes the loudest thing in the world. After about a minute, he finally walked to the door. Instead of knocking, he opened it and stepped inside like he always did, like the house was his, like he'd earned that comfort. "David," he called, his voice tighter than usual, stretched thin around the edges. I didn't answer. I let him search for me. Some men only understand consequences when they feel them in the air. He found me in the kitchen, sitting at the table with the envelope beside me. I didn't look up. I wanted him to speak first. It's in the silence that guilt grows roots. "What is this?" he finally asked, holding the note in front of him, like it was radioactive. I lifted my gaze slowly. "You tell me," Derek swallowed. He was a tall man, always confident in his posture, but now he looked smaller somehow, like the weight of the truth had folded him in on himself. "I don't understand," he said. "Money? What money?" I tapped the envelope with 2 fingers. "Our savings," I said. "Our Christmas fund. The money we've been adding to every December since Emily was in kindergarten." My voice didn't rise. I didn't need volume. My control unnerved him far more than any yell could. Derek's eyes flicked toward the envelope. Then, away. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. But his voice broke on the last word just slightly, enough for a man my age to hear it. "You looked into the envelope, didn't you?" I said. He opened his mouth, closed it again. He didn't nod. He didn't confess, but he didn't deny it either. That was enough. "You know," I said quietly, "I have spent my entire life working around men who think lies are softer than truth. They think, if they speak slowly and keep their voice steady, the deception won't show. But it always does. Always." Derek shifted awkwardly, rubbing his thumb against the edge of the note. "Look, maybe something happened. Maybe I picked it up by mistake. Or maybe—" "Don't," I said. Just that one word, it stopped him like a brick wall. "Don't insult my intelligence by pretending you have no idea why the envelope is missing $5,000. His throat bobbed. $5,000? He repeated, as if he didn't know the exact number. I pushed the envelope toward him. "Count it." He didn't touch it. That told me more than any confession ever could. A moment later, Carol walked into the kitchen, her arms full of clean towels. She stopped when she saw Derek, then looked at me. Then the table. "Everything all right?" she asked, her eyebrows pulling together. I didn't want her involved yet. Not until I had something concrete. Concrete hurts more, but it also protects. "We're talking," I said, keeping my tone neutral. Derek jumped in too quickly. "There's some misunderstanding," he said, his smile forced, the kind you give a police officer when you're not sure if your brake light works. "Just clearing it up." Carol looked at us both for a long moment. She wasn't fooled, not even a little, but she decided to let it go, for now. She left the room quietly, her footsteps softer than usual. As soon as she was gone, I leaned forward. "Tell me why you took it." "I didn't," Derek said, too fast. "I swear, I didn't take anything." "You're lying," I said, "and you're bad at it." He let out a shaky breath and covered his face with one hand. "David, please. This is not what you think." "Then what is it?" I asked. "What makes a grown man steal from the family he claims to love? What makes you take money that was meant for your wife, your children, for the one time of year that actually brings this house together?" He lowered his hand, but he didn't look at me. "I was going to put it back," he muttered. There it was, the confession he didn't realize he'd given. "So you did take it." He froze, realizing he'd stepped into the trap so cleanly, so easily. He didn't even hear it snap shut. I stood up slowly, letting every movement be deliberate. "Sit down," I said. He sank into the chair like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. "Tell me everything," I said. He hesitated, not out of defiance, out of shame. I could see it in the slump of his shoulders, the way he kept dragging his thumb across the paper, the way he couldn't meet my eyes. "I had a situation," he said finally. "I needed the money fast. Just temporarily. I thought I could replace it before Christmas." "What situation?" I asked. He didn't answer. "Derek," I warned. Still nothing. Just silence, and a look in his eyes like he was weighing which truth would destroy him least. Finally he whispered, "I didn't lose it. I didn't spend it. I gave it to someone." "To who?" He swallowed hard. "Please don't make me say it." "Yes," I said. "You're going to say it." He exhaled shakily, and then someone threatened me. I stared at him, long and unblinking. "Threatened you how?" He wouldn't look up. If I didn't pay, they were going to tell Emily something. Something I did a long time ago. My heart thudded once, deep and heavy. "What did you do, Derek?" He squeezed his eyes shut. "I messed up, okay? Years ago, before we got married, I thought it wouldn't matter, but someone found out, and now they want more." "So you stole from your family to pay a blackmailer?" He didn't argue. That was as good as a yes. "And you think this is going to stop?" He shook his head, barely. "No." I sat back down, letting the realization sink in that this wasn't about money anymore. This was about something deeper, something uglier. I spoke quietly. "Derek, whoever they are, they're not your biggest problem anymore." He looked up finally, fear clouding his eyes. "What do you mean?" I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "Because now you answer to me." His face blanched. "And we're going to find out exactly who these people are," I said, "and what they think they have over you. But you're going to be honest with me from now on. Every detail. Every mistake. Every secret." He nodded slowly. Defeated. But I wasn't done. "And Derek," I added, "if what you did hurts my daughter, I promise you, I will find a way to make you wish this conversation never happened." His breath hitched. The house was silent, and that was when a phone buzzed on the table between us. Not mine, not his. Carol's. She'd left it behind. The message preview on the screen made both of us freeze. "We know he talked. Tell him we're not done." For a long moment, neither of us moved. The phone buzzed again, vibrating softly against the wood of the table. Derek stared at it, like it might explode. My pulse slowed, not sped, something that happens when you've lived long enough to know that fear is only useful if you stay cold. I reached for Carol's phone, flipped it over, and looked at the preview again. "We know he talked. Tell him we're not done." I lifted my eyes to Derek. "Who is this?" His voice cracked. "I don't know. I swear, David. I don't know the name. They never gave one." I clenched my jaw. "Then how did they contact you? How did they threaten you?" "Text." His hands shook as he folded the note I'd left on his windshield. "Always text. Never a call, never a face, just instructions." "And what did you do?" I asked, my voice low. "What did you do that someone thinks they can extort you?" He swallowed hard. "It was before Emily and I got engaged. Something stupid. I was in debt. I made a mistake with a client at work. And someone found out. I thought it was buried. I thought." I raised a hand. "I don't need every detail. Not now. I just need the truth. I am telling you the truth," Derek said, desperation slipping into his tone. "But they didn't reach out until last month. They demanded money, said they'd ruin my life if I didn't pay. They said they had proof. And I didn't have the money, David. I panicked. I thought I'd replace it before you noticed." I exhaled slowly. "You stole from us. From your wife, from your children. That is what you did." He nodded miserably. The phone buzzed a third time. This time I opened it. A new message sat below the previous one. "If he's smart, he'll pay again. If he's not, you'll all regret it." I felt a cold wash climb my spine, but I didn't let it show. "Not to Derek, not to anyone." "David," a voice said. Behind me, Carol stood in the doorway. She must have come back downstairs for her phone. Her eyes went from me to Derek to the phone in my hand. "What's going on?" Derek stiffened. I closed the screen. "We're handling something," I said. "Not a lie, not yet. We'll talk later." Her face tightened, worry blooming instantly. "You're scaring me." I softened my tone. "Not now, Carol. Give me a little time." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right, but please, don't shut me out." When she left, Derek let out a long breath. "She can't know," he said. "Please." I stared at him. "You think keeping her in the dark is going to protect her?" "Derek, whoever this is, they know where we live. They know who we are. They know you talked. That means they're watching." He lowered his head into his hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. You're sorry for the wrong thing," I said. "You're sorry you got caught." He didn't argue. I walked to the window, parting the curtain just a sliver. Cars passed on the street. Snow fell in soft flakes. Everything looked normal, peaceful, the way December afternoons always look. But something was wrong now. Something had entered our home. Not physically, but it was here. "That number," I said. "Your messages. Do you still have them?" He nodded. "Yes, I didn't delete anything. I thought if something happened I'd need proof." "For who?" I asked. "The police." He didn't respond. That told me everything I needed to know. "Give me your phone." He unlocked it with trembling hands and passed it over. I scrolled. The messages stretched back 6 weeks. Always short, always demanding, always threatening. "They asked for 10,000 originally," Derek said quietly. "I gave them 3. Then they said it wasn't enough. Then 5. Then they told me I had until December 15th to pay the rest." I looked at him slowly. "That's tomorrow." He nodded. "I know. And you think, if you pay them, they'll stop?" I asked. He shook his head, defeated. "No." "Good," I said. "Because they won't. Blackmailers never stop." He buried his face in his palms again. I stood there for a moment, thinking, breathing, piecing together the edges of a problem I didn't fully understand yet. Then I grabbed my coat from the chair. "Get up." Derek looked up, startled. "Where are we going?" I opened the door. Cold air swept into the house. "Your house," I said. "We're going through everything. Bank statements, emails, call logs, whatever you've touched in the last 2 months." "Why?" he asked, genuinely confused. "To see if someone close to you is involved." I said, "Blackmail only works when the blackmailer knows enough to hurt you. That means they either followed you, or they knew you first." Derek followed me out, pulling on his jacket with shaking hands. "Do you really think it's someone we know?" "I think it's someone who knows exactly what they're doing," I said. We walked across the yard toward his SUV. The snow crunched under our feet, like old bones. When he reached for the driver's door, I held out my hand. "Give me the keys." "What? Why?" "I don't know who's watching," I said. "But if they think you're running to the police or trying to escape, they might escalate. For now, I drive. You keep your head down." He handed me the keys without arguing. That alone told me how scared he was. We got in the car, and I started the engine. As we backed out of the driveway, Derek stared straight ahead, frozen, barely breathing. "You said they threatened to tell Emily," I said. "What exactly do they have?" He flinched. I don't know for sure. They said they had documents, emails. Something from years ago." "From your job?" He nodded. "I did something I shouldn't have. I falsified a report. I was young and stupid, and I thought it didn't matter, but if it comes out now, Emily will leave you." I finished for him. His silence was answer enough. We drove in tense quiet for several minutes. The sky hung low, heavy with snow. Houses blurred by. Christmas lights flickered from porches. A beautiful lie of normalcy. Do you regret it? I asked suddenly. He turned to me, confused. Regret what? Whatever you did back then. Do you regret it? His throat tightened. Every day, he whispered. I nodded. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. We reached his house. He unlocked the front door and led me inside. The place was warm, quiet. The kids were at school. Emily was at work. Derek's world was balanced on a thread. Only I knew was fraying. Where do we start? He asked. Your office, I said. We walked down the hallway. Derek opened the door to his small home office. Neat, polished, organized. Too organized. Sit, I said, pulling out the chair. I want you to log into everything. Email, bank, work, portal. All of it. He sat, hands trembling, and started typing. The moment he opened his bank account, I felt my stomach drop. What the hell is that? I asked. Derek followed my eyes and his face went pale. A new transfer, $5,000. Sent that morning, at 8:04 a.m., to an unlisted account. I didn't send that, he whispered. The phrase hung in the air like a slow-forming crack in glass. I leaned closer. Something clicked in my mind. Derek, I said quietly. Who else has access to your accounts? He shook his head. No one. Not even. I stopped. Because a shadow suddenly moved in the hallway. A small one. A familiar one. Emily. Her voice came soft, trembling. Dad, why are you here? And why are you going through Derek's computer? Emily stood frozen in the hallway, her hands still resting on the doorframe, like she needed it to stay upright. Her eyes weren't angry. Not yet. They were confused, then hurt, then frightened all at once. Derek rose from the chair so fast it scraped across the floor. Wait, he said, taking a step toward her. She stepped back. No, don't. What's happening? Why are you two whispering? Why are you looking at bank accounts? Derek, what did you do? Her voice cracked on that last word. Do. Derek looked at me, pleading silently for help he didn't deserve. I took a breath. Emily, I said gently. Come sit down. Please. She hesitated, eyes darting from me to Derek. Dad, I know that look on your face. You're scared, and you don't scare easily. So please, someone tell me what's going on. Derek swallowed hard. It's not what you think. Then say what it is, she replied, voice trembling. Right now. I closed Derek's laptop halfway, not enough to hide the screen, just enough to slow the storm. Emily, something's been happening with Derek. He didn't want to tell you because he thought he could fix it before you found out. She stared at him. Fix what? Derek ran a shaking hand over his face. I messed up. A long time ago. Years before we even met. She blinked. Okay. But what does that have to do with our bank account? He didn't answer. Which was answer enough. She grabbed the top of the laptop and pulled it open again. The transfer sat there in bold letters. $5,000. Sent this morning. Her face drained of color. This isn't us. She looked up at Derek. Did you send that? No, Derek whispered. I swear I didn't. Then who did? She demanded. I stepped in, Emily. Sit down, please. We're trying to figure that out. She ignored the chair. Dad, did he steal from you? Derek winced. I told you I'd pay it back, he said, voice breaking. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Oh my God, Derek reached for her hand. But she pulled away sharply. Don't, he froze. She turned to me. Dad, what did he do? What aren't you telling me? I breathed slowly through my nose, choosing my words with surgical caution. Emily, someone has been extorting Derek. They've been threatening him for weeks, maybe longer. They demanded money. He panicked. He made a terrible decision. She stared at me, eyes filling with tears. And he didn't tell me? His wife? Derek's shoulders slumped. I didn't want to drag you into this. You and the kids. I thought, if I could just pay. Emily cut him off. Pay? Pay? Who? There was a long silence. Long enough to feel the walls listening. That's what we're trying to figure out, I said softly. Emily looked down at the transfer again. So this was them? This morning? Yes, I said. But not Derek. Then how? Before she could finish, the phone in her back pocket buzzed. Not my phone, not Derek's, hers. She flinched at the sound, startled. Her hand hovered over it, like she was afraid to touch it. Derek said quietly. Don't. She pulled the phone out anyway. She looked at the screen, and her lips parted just slightly, as if she'd forgotten how to breathe. She handed it to me, without saying a word. A single text glowed on the screen. Tell your father-in-law to stop digging. Below it another message arrived as we watched. You have until midnight. Emily covered her mouth with both hands. Derek sank into the chair like his bones had turned to dust. I stared at the message, my pulse steady but cold. The text wasn't to Derek this time. It wasn't to Carol. It wasn't to a house phone or an old number. It was to Emily. They knew she was home. They knew she had just entered the hallway. They knew exactly when to text. Whoever this is, I said quietly. They're watching. Emily's eyes shot toward the windows. You mean, outside? Here? Maybe, I said. Or they hacked something? Or they cloned a number, but they knew you were here. That means this is closer than we thought. Derek stood abruptly. We call the police. Now. I don't care what they have. I don't care what they threaten. We call them. Emily nodded quickly. Yes, call them. Why haven't you already? I shook my head slowly. Because once we do that, everything changes. Whoever's doing this will know. They'll escalate. Emily stared at me helplessly. Dad, they already escalated. Derek looked at his wife, then at me, then at the door. We need protection. For the kids. For Emily. I didn't want to admit how bad it was. I thought I could control it. I thought I could protect them. I looked at him sharply. You thought wrong. He didn't argue. I stepped into the hallway and pulled the curtains aside just enough to peek outside. The street looked ordinary. A jogger passed by. A delivery truck drove off. A neighbor shuffled to his mailbox. Nothing suspicious, which somehow felt worse. Emily stood behind me. Dad, what do we do? I let the curtain fall back into place. We gather everything, I said. Every message, every call, every odd moment from the last month. Everything Derek remembers. Then we call the police. Not before. Why not before? She asked. Because we need the whole timeline, I said. If we don't, they'll treat it like a simple fraud case. We need them to see the full picture, the threats, the money trail, the timing, the fact that it's escalating. Otherwise, we'll spend the next 3 days explaining, instead of getting help. Emily wiped her eyes. Derek sat down heavily on the couch, rubbing his forehead. I looked at him, start talking. Everything, from the beginning. He nodded slowly. Okay. It started with an email. Not a text, not at first, Emily gasped. I saw you deleting emails last month. You told me it was junk mail. Derek, I know, he said. I'm sorry. What did the first email say? I asked. He closed his eyes, digging through his memory. It said, we know what you did. That was it. No signature, no details. Just that. Then another came the next day with an attachment. A PDF. Emily blinked. What was in it? His voice dropped to a whisper. My old report, the one I doctored. They had the original version and the edited one, side by side. And how could they have that? I asked. He shook his head. I deleted everything. Wiped the drive. I don't know how anyone could have found it. Unless they were there, I said. He looked up sharply. What do you mean? Someone on the inside, I said. Someone at your old job. Someone who had access back then. Emily crossed her arms, hugging herself. Who, Derek? She asked. Who knew? Who did you work with? That hated you enough to do this? He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. There was one person, one who, I pressed. He lowered his head slowly, eyes clouding. My former supervisor, he whispered. Greg, Emily's face went blank. Greg, the one who came to our wedding? Derek nodded. And brought a gift basket last Christmas? She asked, disbelief thick in her voice. He nodded again. I felt the shift inside the room, a new shape forming in the dark. Emily, I said, carefully, has he contacted you recently? At all? She opened her mouth, then froze. Her face changed. I think, she whispered. Then her phone buzzed again, and the message waiting for her made the blood drain from all our faces. Emily's hand trembled as she lifted the phone, her eyes narrowing like she wasn't sure they were seeing correctly. She held it out to me without a word, her breath coming in shallow, uneven pulls. I took the phone gently from her and looked at the screen. A new text, ask your husband. Why he never told you about December 14th. Emily's jaw tightened. December 14th. Derek, what's December 14th? He went pale, completely pale, like every drop of blood drained through the floor. Derek, she repeated, louder this time. What happened on that date? He pressed his palms against his eyes, exhaling shakily. Emipper, I didn't think. You didn't think, what? She snapped. I stepped between them, not to shield him, but to keep the room from exploding. Derek, I said evenly, what happened on that date? Start with the basics. Year, location, anything. His voice sounded like gravel. It was 5 years ago. Before the kids, before we got married. Emily stared at him, her hands curling into fists. And, he swallowed. It was the night I left early from the office. The night the board met without me. Emily blinked. What board? Derek hesitated. The ethics board, he said quietly. The words landed like a crack in the wall. Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. You told me you were never called into a hearing. I wasn't, Derek said, not officially. They didn't bring me in because they didn't have enough evidence. But that night, Greg went to them. He called for an unscheduled review. Emily shook her head. Greg, why? Because he thought I was the one who submitted the complaint about him. Derek said. Only someone else did. But he blamed me. He always blamed me. And you didn't tell me any of this. She said. Not a question. A statement. Cold. He reached out. Pleading. Emily. I thought it was over. I didn't want you worrying about something that clearly isn't over. She snapped. I stepped back in. Derek. That text. How do they even know that date mattered? That meeting wasn't public. Right? Only a handful of people knew. Derek said. The board members, HR, and Greg. Emily closed her eyes. So it is him. Derek shook his head. I don't know. It could be someone else who got access somehow. Who else? I asked. Silence. Long enough to feel like a confession. Emily looked at him again, her voice brittle. What aren't you telling us? He didn't answer right away. He stood, walked to the window, pressed his forehead to the glass, and spoke without turning. I wasn't the only one who doctored a report that year. Emily frowned. What does that mean? Derek exhaled. Greg altered numbers too. Bigger ones. Much bigger. And he used me as a distraction. He let the suspicion fall on me so no one would check his files. I crossed my arms slowly. You told me you acted alone. He nodded helplessly. I thought I did, At the time, I didn't realize until years later that he'd buried his own edits behind mine. My mistake gave him cover. Emily whispered. Oh my God. Derek turned around. Emily, I swear, I had no idea. I only learned the full truth long after I left the company. And that's why he's doing this, she asked. To shut you up? Maybe, Derek said. Or maybe he thinks I finally told someone. The phone in my hand buzzed again. All three of us froze. Another message. This one longer. If the three of you want to enjoy Christmas with your family, tell Derek to keep his mouth shut. Midnight. No more delays. Emily pressed her hand to her chest, shaking. Dad, we need to call the police, right now. Right this minute. Derek looked at me. Panic rising. What if that makes it worse? What if he's outside? What if he's watching the kids' school? I lowered the phone. We're calling them, but first, we need to outsmart him. Emily stepped closer. How? We need leverage, I said. Proof he's involved. Something concrete. Derek, do you have anything that ties Greg to your old files, emails, logs, anything? He shook his head. Not here. But maybe in my old backup drive. At the storage unit. I frowned. The one across town? The one you haven't opened in years? Yes, he said. I kept some old work archives there. Just in case. Emily stared at him. You kept evidence this whole time and never told me. I didn't think any of it mattered anymore, Derek said. I didn't want that part of my life near you. The phone buzzed again before she could respond. Another message. This one different. Don't go looking for your past, Derek. It's not there anymore. Emily gasped. How does he know? How would he know we were even talking about the storage unit? I looked at Derek. Do you still have access to the email tied to that unit? Yes, Derek said. It's on my phone. Is it logged in right now? He hesitated, then pulled his phone from his pocket. He tapped the screen, looked at me, and nodded slowly. Yes, he whispered. It's logged in. Emily covered her face. He's watching us. He's actually watching us. This is insane. I took Derek's phone from him and turned it completely off. Airplane mode wasn't enough. Powering off is safer. I handed it back to him. He held it like it might explode. Emily paced in a tight circle. Dad, what do we do now? He's inside our lives. He knows everything. He knows where we go, what we say, what we're thinking. How do you stop someone like that? We stop him with something he can't erase, I said. Something permanent. Derek blinked. What? We get to the storage unit anyway, I said. If he's bluffing, the evidence is still there. If he's not, then we'll know just how far he's gone. Emily grabbed her coat, then we go. Now, before midnight. Before he does anything else. I shook my head, not all three of us. They both looked at me. Who stays? Emily asked. You, I said, gently. You stay with the kids. They need stability. If anything happens, they need their mother right there. She nodded, slow but resolute. Derek swallowed. Then, I'm going with you. I met his eyes. No. You're staying too, he blinked. What? Why? Because you're the target, I said. If he wants to stop anyone from reaching that storage unit, it's you. If you show up, he wins. If I go alone, he has fewer ways to corner us. Emily stepped closer to me. Dad, are you sure? Are you absolutely sure you can do this alone? I looked at them both. Yes, I said quietly. I'm not the one he's expecting. Derek stared at me, conflicted, his jaw clenching. No, I said firmly. You stay here, protect your wife and kids. Lock every door. Do not open them for anyone. Emily grabbed my hand. Dad, please be careful. I squeezed her hand. I will. I stepped toward the door, and that's when someone knocked. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. None of us moved. Emily whispered. Dad, who Who is that? Another knock. Louder. Then a voice. A man's voice. Calm. Measured. Derek, we need to talk. Derek went white. Emily grabbed his arm. I stepped forward slowly, heart steadying with something colder than fear. I looked through the peephole, and the face staring back at me was one I recognized immediately. Greg. Greg stood on the porch with his hands in his coat pockets. Shoulders relaxed like he'd stopped by to borrow a snow shovel, rather than terrorize my daughter's family. He wasn't smiling, but his face carried that same steady expression I remembered from the wedding, polite, unreadable, unnervingly calm. The kind of calm that made your instincts tighten. Behind me, Derek whispered, "No, no, no. He can't be here. He can't know where we stay back," I said, without looking at him. Emily clutched the kid's hallway monitor like a lifeline. "Dad, don't open that door, please." I didn't plan to. Not yet. Greg waited. Quiet. Still, like he knew we were all huddled just beyond the wood. I raised my voice through the door. "What do you want, Greg?" A pause. Then he said, "I think you know." Derek inhaled sharply. "Dad, don't engage him. Please." I ignored Derek. "You texted my daughter. You threatened my family." Greg replied with a tone so level. It chilled the room. "I warned your family. There's a difference." Emily stared at the door like it might burst open. "Dad, is he armed?" "I don't know," I said quietly. Derek trembled. "He shouldn't even know where we live. How did he find us? How did he—" I cut him off. "He didn't have to find you. You gave him everything." Derek looked at me, confused. Then it hit him, his phone, his email, his work records. He'd never disconnected from any of it. "I didn't think," he whispered. "Exactly," I said. Another knock. Firm this time. "Open the door, David." Greg said. "We can have a conversation, or we can let things get unfortunate." Emily shook her head violently. "Dad, no. Absolutely no." I didn't move toward the door. Not even an inch. "Instead," I said, "you show up uninvited minutes after threatening my daughter, and you want a friendly conversation." "Not friendly," he said, almost amused. "Just honest." I stepped closer, but kept my hand off the lock. "Then be honest from out there." He exhaled through his nose. "Fine. Here it is. Derek knows exactly what I want, and I think you do too." I came to give him one last opportunity to stop, before he ruins all of us. Emily grabbed Derek's sleeve. "What does that mean?" But he just stood there staring at the door with a look that scared even me. Because it wasn't fear, it was guilt. I watched him closely. "Derek, what is he talking about?" He didn't answer. Greg spoke again through the door. "Open it, David. I'm not going away." I raised my voice. "You step onto this property again after today, I call the police." He laughed softly. "David, you think the police scare me? You think they'll even know what to do with this? Fraud across multiple jurisdictions, old corporate files, documents no one is supposed to have. If you make that call, you'll drag your entire family into something you do not understand." I felt something cold settle in my chest. He wasn't bluffing. He knew exactly how to weaponize the system. I leaned close to the door. "You're scared," I said quietly. That caught him off guard. Silence. "You're scared we'll get to that storage unit before you do." A beat. Maybe two. Then Greg said, "There's nothing in that unit," but there was something in the way he said nothing that told me exactly the opposite. I glanced at Derek. "You told me you kept everything off the record there." He nodded, barely breathing. "I did." "Then Greg's afraid," I said. "He knows what's inside." Greg's voice came sharper now. "If you open that unit, I promise you, you will regret it." Emily stepped backward, like his voice could reach through the door and drag her outside. I kept my tone flat. "Then I guess I'm opening it." A muffled thud hit the door. Greg's fist, hard. He'd lost the mask now. David, he hissed. Listen to me. You don't want to get involved in this. Derek made his choices years ago. He knew the consequences. He knew what he owed. This is between him and me, I replied. Then why text Emily? Silence. He didn't have an answer. Derek finally spoke. Greg, please, don't do this. Just tell me what you want. If it's the money, take it. Take all of it. Leave Emily out of this. Leave the kids out of this. Greg laughed. Not loud. Just one exhale. Derek, you think this is about money? You always were unbelievably naive. Emily whispered, Dad, call the police. Not yet. Not until I knew how much danger he was willing to create. I pressed my forehead lightly to the wood of the door. Greg, if you take one more step on this porch, if you attempt to contact my family again, I will treat you like a threat to their lives. You understand me? A long pause. Then he said something that made the entire room go still. You already should. For the first time since he arrived, I heard something new in his voice. Not confidence. Not anger, but desperation. It only confirmed what I already suspected. He had something to lose. Something big. Something in that storage unit. I said, You should leave now. Greg replied, I'll leave when Derek opens this door and faces me like a man. Derek stepped forward instinctively, but I lifted my arm and blocked him. No, I said. You stay back. Emily grabbed her husband's sleeve. Derek, don't go near that door. He clenched his jaw. I can't hide forever, Em. Yes, you can, she said. You can hide right now. Then Greg said something that cracked the air in half. Emily, he said, voice lowering, asked Derek where he was the night your father had his stroke. Emily froze. Her eyes shifted slowly toward Derek. Derek, she whispered. Why is he asking that? Derek shut his eyes, swallowing hard. Greg, don't. No more secrets, Greg said. Tell her where you were. Emily stepped toward him. Derek, what is he talking about? He opened his mouth. But before he could speak, the doorbell rang. Not a knock this time. The bell, one long, steady press. We all flinched. Then a new sound, a car door slamming. Not one, two. I moved to the side window and peeled the curtain back half an inch. A black sedan, unkinder. A second one. Both idling. Both unfamiliar. Emily whispered, Dad, who are they? Two men stepped out of the first car. Suits. No coats. No hesitation. Another two from the second car. They weren't here to talk. They were here to collect. I let the curtain fall. We're done talking, I said quietly. Derek backed away from the door, panic rising in his eyes. Dad. What do we do? What do we do? Emily clutched his arm. Are they police? Are they? No, I said. They're not. Greg knocked again. Almost cheerful. David. Open the door. We don't need to make a scene. I stepped away from the door and motioned sharply to the back hallway. All of you, upstairs, now. Derek's voice cracked. Dad, now, I repeated. Go. Emily grabbed Derek's hand and pulled him. They disappeared toward the staircase, hurried footsteps echoing on the hardwood. I stayed by the door. Greg knocked one last time. David, he said calmly. You can't run from this. Midnight is coming. I exhaled slowly. Then I reached for the deadbolt. But I didn't unlock it. I slid it further closed. Greg chuckled softly. You think that lock will matter? No, I whispered. But it buys me 8 seconds. I turned away from the door and walked toward the kitchen drawer, the one with the old metal flashlight inside. Heavy, solid, reliable. Outside I heard footsteps approaching the porch. Multiple pairs. Greg's voice dropped to a whisper, just barely audible through the wood. Don't make the wrong choice, David. But I'd already made it. I gripped the flashlight in my hand, feeling its weight anchor me. Outside the snow had stopped, but the air carried that brittle December chill that made every small sound sharper, louder. Footsteps on the porch. 1, 2, then several more. They weren't hesitant. They weren't testing. They were moving with purpose. Precision, like they'd done this before. Greg's voice sliced through the tension. Low, controlled. David, I gave you fair warning. Step aside. I didn't respond. I waited. Not out of fear, but to see who made the first mistake. These men, these shadows on the porch, were tools. Greg was the real threat. Everything else was secondary. A car engine roared outside. Another one. I couldn't see it from here, but I knew it. Then the sound of something metallic hitting the concrete. A crowbar? A hammer? I wasn't sure. But it wasn't good. Emily's voice rang out faintly from upstairs. Dad? What's happening? Are they breaking in? Stay upstairs, I called back. Voice calm, measured. Do not come down. Greg laughed softly. They'll get what they want whether she comes down or not. I moved to the window, peeking through the blinds. Shadows moved in the snow. 4 figures now. Suits, black. Hands in pockets. But their posture screamed readiness. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to intimidate, and to find something. I turned, scanning the kitchen drawers. The flashlight felt good. Solid, reliable, not enough. But it was a start. I slid it into my coat pocket, my free hand brushing the envelope still lying on the table. The envelope with the Christmas savings, the evidence of Derek's panic, the leverage I might need. If I played this right, I could control the situation. Not fully, but enough to survive the night. The first man touched the doorknob. Slowly, deliberately. I could see it through the blinds. Greg's voice floated above the sound. David, open up. You're only making this worse. I exhaled. I don't think so, I muttered. Then I heard it, a click, a door on the back porch. Another pair of footsteps. They weren't here for conversation. They were here to make a statement. Inside, the kids stirred upstairs. Emily murmured softly, What is happening? I hear someone outside. They won't get to you, I said. Voice steady. Just stay in the bedroom. Lock it. Everything else is a distraction. Outside, the first man's hand slipped under the doorknob again. Then he froze. Something had shifted. A second's hesitation. Enough. I knew enough about human nature to know. Hesitation is fear. Fear is leverage. David, I'm serious. Greg's voice hissed. One wrong move and they're in. Do you want them in? I stepped back. Heart steady. You want in? I said quietly. Come, but know this. Once you step over that threshold, nothing is controlled anymore. The crowbar lifted. Another figure pressed against the porch light switch, bathing the steps in harsh yellow. Shadows stretched and shifted. I could make out the first man's breath, visible in the cold night. The others weren't moving. Just waiting. Then a sound from the back hallway. The kid's monitor chirped. Low, Emily's hand shaking, as she adjusted the volume. It was a reminder. They were upstairs, vulnerable. Counting on me, I pressed a hand against the wall. The flashlight in my coat felt like armor. Greg's voice softened, almost conversational. David, you could have avoided all of this. Just give Derek what I want. I smiled slightly. Not the smile of a happy man. The smile of someone who knows the fight has begun. You misjudge me. The doorknob twisted again. Metal scraping against metal. One push. A step, a second. My pulse stayed slow. This wasn't luck. It was timing. Observation, strategy, and instinct. I grabbed the envelope. The money, the note, everything. It wasn't just paper. It was a message, a tool. I didn't intend to let Greg or his men get it. A deep breath, one step toward the door. Outside, I said. My voice carried over the snow. calm, deliberate. You step outside, we talk. You step inside, it's a different story. A pause, footsteps, shifting. Greg's laugh, low, clever. But that won't save you. Then the first man's hand lifted the crowbar higher, like he wanted to test me. I flicked the flashlight on, aimed directly at his face. The beam caught his eyes, made him flinch. Shadows danced across the snow, over the porch steps, and I stepped forward slowly, deliberately. "David," Greg said. "Stop this. They won't hesitate." "I don't care," I said. "You have no idea what's waiting for you if you cross that line." The man on the porch hesitated. One of his feet shifted. He glanced at Greg, then back at me. That was enough. Fear was seeding. A ripple passed through the four men. I could hear Emily upstairs whispering to Derek, trying to calm the kids. The sound anchored me, gave me focus. Protecting them wasn't just instinct. It was survival. My survival. Their survival. Everyone's. Greg's voice grew sharper. "David, don't play games with me. Step aside." I stepped forward again. The snow crunched under my boots. The flashlight's beam unwavering. "One more move, Greg, and this ends differently than you think." Another pause. Then a crunch outside. Someone moving on the porch. But now, slower, careful. Hesitant. My words had worked. Just enough. Emily's voice came from upstairs, louder this time. "Dad, are they leaving? Please tell me they're leaving." I exhaled slowly. "Not yet. But they're thinking about it." Greg cursed softly, low, almost inaudible. The men outside shuffled, footsteps against snow, hesitation, fear. They were waiting for a signal, looking to him. He couldn't give it. I stepped back from the door, holding the flashlight at waist height, envelope still in hand. My mind raced. Every scenario, every potential move, every risk. But one thing was certain. Tonight was no longer about Derek's mistake, or Christmas money, or blackmail. It was about control, survival, and the family I refused to let Greg harm. A car door slammed again. Far down the street, a muffled horn. Maybe coincidence. Maybe not. But it reminded me time was moving. Midnight wasn't just a threat. It was the deadline. The moment when everything escalated, I looked down at the envelope. The note still crisp. A smile crept over my face. Not a smile of joy, but a smile of anticipation. They thought they controlled the situation. They thought fear ruled here. But they didn't know me. "Greg," I said, voice carrying, "you have one choice left. Step off my porch, or face what happens next." A long silence. Snow fell quietly, the air tense, and then a sound, the scrape of a boot pulling back. One of the men, hesitation spreading through the rest. Greg muttered something under his breath. I couldn't hear it, but I knew he realized his leverage was slipping. Inside I could hear Emily whispering to Derek. Calm, relief. My heart clenched. They were safe. For now, I glanced back at the door. The envelope was heavy in my hands. Symbolic, protective. A reminder that tonight the fight had only begun, but it had begun on my terms. And that was everything. The footsteps outside finally stopped. Not a retreat. Not entirely. But a pause. Silence fell over the snow-covered porch, interrupted only by the faint hum of the streetlights. I kept the flashlight raised, hands steady, eyes narrowed. One wrong move out there, and it could all erupt. 1 second of hesitation could mean Emily or the kids get hurt. I refused to let that happen. Greg's voice, calm but laced with irritation, broke the silence. "David, we both know this doesn't have to get ugly. Hand over the envelope, and maybe we walk away quietly." I clenched the envelope in my hand, feeling the weight of every dollar, every threat, every lie Derek had buried years ago. "You want it? Come take it." A pause, A chuckle from Greg, low and dangerous. You really think it's that simple? You're playing with forces you can't even imagine. I imagine enough, I said. I imagine my daughter safe, my grandchildren safe, and you walking away empty-handed. The shuffling of boots. One man stepped forward, clearly the boldest, or the most foolish. The crowbar in his hand gleamed faintly under the porch light. He raised it slowly, testing me. I didn't flinch. My other hand brushed the envelope closer to my chest, ready to shove, throw, or use it however necessary. The man froze again. Fear, not courage. He was testing, and I let him. Every second I let him. Every second I let him hesitate, my advantage grew. Then, Greg spoke. His voice, smooth but sharp. David, do you have any idea what's in that unit? What could ruin your entire family? Think carefully. One move, and I cut him off. One move, and you don't get to decide what happens next. I do. A long silence. Cold December air pressed against the door, waiting for someone to falter. Footsteps shifted. The second man moved closer to the first. The others stayed back, watching, waiting. The power dynamics were clear. Greg wasn't in control anymore. I was, and he knew it. Emily's voice came from upstairs. Dad, please be careful. I inhaled slowly, letting my words float up. I am. Just stay where you are, lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone. Understand? Yes, she whispered. A laugh, low, mocking, but edged with frustration. Greg's tone broke through. You really think you're ready for this, David? You're alone? Completely alone. I didn't answer. I focused on the porch. The man with the crowbar twitched, foot shifting, eyes darting. I could see the hesitation, the fear. I took a single, slow step forward, flashlight angled to catch all four of them in the snow's reflection. Greg's voice tightened. David, stop. I flicked the beam toward his face. His pupils constricted, a twitch in his jaw. I knew I had him. Fear had entered his calm. The first crack in the armor, a mistake. I pressed the advantage. Step back, Greg, I said. Step back, or this ends right here. Another pause. Snow settled quietly around the porch. The man with the crowbar shifted his weight again. Greg's hand twitched toward the doorframe, but he didn't move inside. Not yet. They were testing boundaries, measuring fear. I measured mine in return. I glanced back at the staircase. Emily and Derek were still upstairs. Safe, that's all that mattered. Greg didn't know it yet, but the real leverage was inside. With my family, the porch, that was just theater. The first man made a move, just one step. Foot scraping against the concrete. I pivoted slightly, flashlight up, ready. He stopped mid-step, probably realizing I wouldn't hesitate. Greg muttered something sharp. Low, almost growling. Fear, I could hear it. It thrilled me, not sadistically, strategically. Every emotion calculated. David, Greg hissed through the wood, you think this is a game. You think you can bluff me. Maybe I am bluffing, I said. Or maybe I'm not. You won't know until you step inside. A cold wind blew across the porch. Snow scattered lightly. The man with the crowbar lowered it slowly, hand shaking. Another man stepped back. Greg's composure was slipping. His calm, measured tone started to fracture. I could feel it in the vibrations through the door. The tension in his words. He wasn't confident anymore. Emily's voice whispered again. Dad, what are you going to do? I crouched slightly. Flashlight level, watching shadows shift outside. I'm making him choose. He's the one who wants in. I'm giving him the opportunity to leave. Silence, a breath. Then Greg's voice, you don't know what's coming, David. Midnight changes everything. I held the flashlight tighter. So does courage. Step off my porch. Walk away. Another pause. Longer. Footsteps retreating slightly. A faint shuffle. Greg was weighing his options. Fear had finally entered his system. I could sense it. He had one choice left. Leave or push it too far. I heard Emily's footsteps hesitate at the top of the staircase. Derek whispered, "Do you think he'll leave?" "I hope so," I muttered. But hope isn't strategy. Greg's voice tighter, almost a growl now. "This isn't over. You think you've won? You haven't seen the last of me." A soft click. The first man stepped off the porch, slowly, carefully. Crowbar lowered. Another shuffled back. Then the second and third and fourth. The snow crunched under their boots as they retreated toward the waiting cars. Greg's last words hissed through the air, barely audible. "David, enjoy the night while you can." I waited, counting slowly to 10. Footsteps faded. Doors slammed. It didn't take long now. Embrace. This silence. Absolute silence. Only the faint hum of the streetlights and the occasional crack of a distant branch under snow. I exhaled slowly. Not relief. Not victory. Awareness. I had survived the first wave, bought time, that was all. But time was what I needed. I pressed a hand against the door, feeling its cold resistance. Greg had tested me. He had feared me. Just a little, enough. That was leverage. I turned toward the staircase. "Emily, Derek, come down." Emily appeared first, pale but relieved. "Dad, for now," I said. "For now?" Derek stepped next to her. "What just happened?" "I bought us time," I said. "Enough time to act. To make sure we control the next move." Emily's hand gripped mine. "Dad, what do we do now?" I looked at them both. Determination setting in. We prepare. We gather everything from the storage unit. We document every message, every threat. Then we strike back. But on our terms. Not his. Derek exhaled shakily. "I don't know if I can survive another night like that." "You will," I said. "Because you're not alone anymore. We're going to finish this together." Emily nodded slowly. "Then let's get ready. We can't wait for him to come back." I glanced at the clock. Midnight still hours away. But the danger wasn't the hour. It was what Greg thought he controlled. And he controlled nothing. I walked back to the table, grabbed the envelope, the note, and Derek's phone. Every piece of evidence, every line of leverage, everything that could help us survive the night, and finally end this nightmare, was in my hands. Outside, the wind picked up again, snow brushing against the windows. Silence returned to the street. But I knew it wouldn't last. Not for long. Greg would make another move. He always did. And when he did, we'd be ready. Because this time, the advantage was ours. We didn't wait for midnight. The envelope, the flash drive, and Derek's phone sat in my hands like a toolkit for justice. Every second that passed outside increased the risk that Greg would return. Or worse, send someone else. Emily and Derek stayed behind, watching from the living room, the kids asleep but alert in the background. I felt their eyes on me, the weight of their trust, the responsibility to end this night without bloodshed, but with victory. I slipped into the truck parked at the back, making sure the engine was silent. The storage unit wasn't far, 20 minutes at most if the roads were clear. The December wind bit through the thin gaps around the windows, but my mind was laser-focused. Every scenario, every possible ambush ran through me, and I planned for them all. Greg thought he was clever. He wasn't. The streets were quiet, snow dampening sounds. The headlights of my truck cut through the soft flakes. Every intersection, every corner I scanned for movement. The thought that Greg might have eyes everywhere made my pulse steady, not frantic. If he wanted to follow, I would know. If he wanted to stop me, he would make a mistake. I reached the storage unit. Key in hand, I scanned the lot. Shadows moved, but nothing approached. Not yet. I slid the lock off the door, hearing the faint metallic click echoing in the empty hall. Inside, the unit smelled like dust and old paper, cardboard, and metal. But what mattered wasn't the smell. It was what lay beneath the layers of old files and forgotten office boxes. I went straight to the back, hands steady, pulling out a large cardboard box marked with Derek's initials. I opened it carefully. Inside, the original files, the doctored reports, every email, every record Derek had once thought lost. A surge of satisfaction rose in me. Not joy, not relief. Satisfaction, control, power, justice. I started sorting through the files, organizing them for proof. Every altered number, every forged email from Greg, every hidden attachment that had allowed him to manipulate Derek's past was there, enough to ruin him professionally, and more importantly to protect my family. I grabbed my phone and started photographing everything. Evidence documented, secure, irrefutable. Then I heard it, a subtle sound behind the units, a footstep, soft, calculated, someone moving, trying to be invisible. My pulse accelerated, but my grip didn't falter. The flashlight in my pocket felt like a lifeline. I moved to the side, flattening myself against the wall. The shadow appeared, a figure in black, crouched low. Greg didn't speak, just stood there, calm, assessing, like a predator waiting for the prey to make the first mistake. I stepped forward slowly, keeping my hands visible, the flashlight ready. "Greg," I said quietly. "You shouldn't be here." He tilted his head. "David, I knew you'd come. You always overestimate your courage." "Not courage," I replied. "Necessity. You threatened my family. I'm here to end that." Greg laughed, a low, bitter sound. "End it? You think this is over because you have a few files? You can't protect your daughter from what's coming? Not even the law can shield her." I stepped closer. "Watch me." He raised his hands, almost mockingly. "Then prove it." A sudden movement from the shadows, his hand toward his coat. My reflexes were faster. I flicked the flashlight toward his face, stunning him for a split second. In that second, I shoved him back against the wall with all my weight. The files and boxes scattered. He stumbled, momentarily unbalanced. "You're done, Greg," I said, voice low, controlled. "Step away." He recovered quickly, rage flashing in his eyes. "You think this changes anything? You think you can destroy me?" I shook my head. "I don't need to destroy you. You destroyed yourself years ago. All I'm doing is showing everyone else the proof." He lunged, I sidestepped, the flashlight beam glinting off his collarbone. He fell forward into the boxes, papers flying like snowflakes in the cold December light. I pinned him with my forearm, weight pressing him to the ground. "You threatened my family," I said. "You targeted my daughter, my grandchildren, my son-in-law, and you thought you could get away with it?" Greg struggled, twisting beneath me. I only wanted Derek. You don't understand." Understand perfectly," I said. "And that's why you're finished." I stood, pulling him up roughly, and pushing him toward the exit. He resisted, but every movement only made him weaker. His bravado was gone. Fear replaced it. For the first time tonight, I saw it. Fear, not just of exposure, but of losing control. I locked the storage unit door behind us. Greg pounded against it, shouting, cursing, begging. But it was over. His world was unraveling, and I held the pieces back in the truck. I drove carefully, eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. No one followed. The night was quiet now, controlled. I looked at the envelope in my hand. The note I had left on Derek's car. The leverage I had used to buy this moment had worked perfectly. Greg had underestimated me. The family that mattered most was safe, and the proof was secure. When I arrived home, Emily and Derek were waiting at the top of the stairs, the kids asleep. Relief washed over them the moment they saw me. Emily ran down, hugging me fiercely. "Dad, You did it. You actually did it. I hugged her back, careful not to jostle the envelope. It's not over yet, I said softly. But we're in control now. Derek stepped forward, voice trembling. How? How did you do it? I couldn't have. You didn't need to, I said. I needed to make sure you and Emily stayed safe. That's what matters. Emily's eyes shone with tears. Dad, I don't even know what to say. You don't have to, I said. Just remember tonight. Remember that we survived this together. I sat them down, explaining every move, every calculation. They listened, hanging on every word. Fear had ruled the evening, but knowledge brought clarity. And now, armed with the files, the notes, and the envelope, we had the power to finally close this chapter. Outside, snow drifted lightly across the driveway. The world was silent. Midnight was long past. But the danger wasn't gone. Not completely. Greg would find out eventually. But by then, it wouldn't matter. We had leverage, proof, justice. And the most important part, my daughter, my grandchildren, my family, were safe. Not just tonight, but for every Christmas to come. I looked at them. Emily clutching Derek's hand, the kids asleep behind them. I allowed myself a small, private smile. The storm had passed. The house was still ours. The threats were over, and for the first time in weeks, I could breathe. Because sometimes justice isn't about revenge. Sometimes it's about survival, timing, and knowing exactly when to take control. And tonight, we had taken control.